Hello friends, I felt guided to do this video today to talk about authentic self-expression. And this really came to the fore recently with a chat that I had with a couple of people. We had a sort of a mini interview, if you like, from a lady who is a voice coach and helps use the voice for expression in an authentic way. And she's looking into what is self-expression and what does it mean. And so myself and my partner and her joined on a Zoom because one of the things that's really crucial in my relationships now is authentic self-expression, and how healing it is and how loving and kind when we can truly share what's on our heart and what's in our mind. And during this interview, I felt really emotional to start with, to actually be asked the question, what does it mean for me? Authentic self-expression. And it's something that has been a very big part of my healing, my awakening journey. And I think that's why it brought up some emotions for me, because to see myself where I am now and to how shut down and blocked I was around self-expression, it's just been such an incredible, profound journey over years, years and years. It's not a quick fix. And I think for many of us, this stemmed in our childhood, where we were told to be quiet or only speak when we were spoken to, or not to have an opinion. Who do you think you are? Many kind of beliefs and stories. And so mine was, I was shy. And I really was very shy. And as a result, I was just completely shut down in that area. So I am so grateful now to be able to express. And I wanted to read a little bit from my book, because in this book I talk about a stage of my awakening. And the chapter is called Authentic Self-Expression, and it's from my book, The Ripple of Awakening, A Mighty Companion on the Spiritual Awakening Journey. And I felt it was important I feel it's important to bring this topic to the light, because, as I say, it is key. It's absolutely key to having healthy, happy, authentic relationships. It really is, because if we have things hidden, if we have private minds and private thoughts, secrets, it is so unhealthy. It literally makes us ill. And of course, what happens then is, in relationships, there's always something else that's hidden. And this isn't said to blame or to judge, it's just what happens, because we try to protect. We try to keep things safe and don't want to rock the boat or upset someone in case they may reject us, or the relationship will fall away if we're honest or we're sharing from our heart. So I'm going to read this section, and if I feel guided, interject things as well to help us actually see more clearly around why we're actually so blocked, and what is, the fear underneath that, to be ourselves. So we'll just have a moment to join here. Maybe you'd like to close your eyes just for a moment and take one or two slightly deeper breaths to just really connect to yourself and to this moment. I mean, how often do you give yourself permission to just stop and be? It's of such value to allow ourselves to rest and to stop being the doer all the time. Everything can wait. There's no urgency, so that you can be fully present here and now. Maybe just become aware of this topic of authentic communication and self-expression. Maybe it's a topic you've not thought about, or maybe it's something you're exploring. Or maybe you have no idea what that really even means or what that even looks like. And it's good just to notice what comes up, what you see or feel or hear. And just to wish to explore in a loving, gentle way this topic. Thank you. So, this is chapter 6, Authentic Self-Expression. Life continued to unfold, and layer upon layer kept falling away. And on New Year's Eve, 2012, I got to the point when I was ready for some play and a new 3-letter word: fun. I put my arms up to the universe and proclaimed that I was done with the snot, the tears, the tantrums, the pain, and the grief. And I was ready to truly live the next phase of my life and wanted 2013 to be very different. True to my asking, the universe delivered the next phase of my awakening. As I discovered my newfound verve for life, what unfolded was the awakening of my creativity. This, I later came to discover, was an inevitable result of clearing out the dense old energy and garbage from the past. Once it's gone, it makes way for new energy to flow through us, and of course, this inspired energy needs an outlet. We just have to look at young children and see how they are so open and receptive to expressing themselves, whether that be through play, fun, laughter, art, music, or dance. They don't yet have a censor or a belief indoctrinated into how they should behave. They are great teachers for us, and a reminder that we too were once that carefree. And this is what we are remembering and returning to as part of our spiritual awakening. It was a delight to find myself on the threshold of this next stage. It also felt a relief from the relentless purging of grief and pain. What transpired was the readiness to express myself and open up to new ways of doing that. This happened first through the voice, a system called the naked voice. It was incredibly challenging to start with, as I had been so used to having no voice, and I felt really embarrassed when it came to singing as well. But I knew it was time to let myself go. It opened up a space for playing, and my teacher showed us all that the voice is an instrument, and the world wants to hear it. Whether that's as a singer, a poet, a teacher, a facilitator, or a friend. Wow, this was certainly a different message to the one I had as a child. Quote, children should be seen and not heard. That was the old program. I was now ready to turn that particular lie on its head. Exclamation mark. It was so freeing and liberating. The phoenix was now rising with greater passion than ever before. I also embarked on The Artist's Way, which is a wonderful healing process for creativity by Julia Cameron, which I would highly recommend if you're feeling to explore your own creativity and expression. And I spent a wonderful summer opening up to the delights of discovering the hidden depth of creativity that had been suppressed for so long. I was writing poetry, discovering different art mediums, and committing to a regular artist's date, and I gave myself permission to try many new things. It was fun, and I couldn't quite recognize myself as someone who was creative, but it seems I was mistaken. And I want to add here that for me, it was never about creating a finished piece of work or something that looked good or something that sounded good. It was never, ever for that, because that would then just shut me down again. It was literally to express. It was literally to allow anything that wanted to come out through the voice, on paper, in words, and it didn't matter what it looked like. And that was very important for me. Next came the discovery of a form of dance called Vital Danza, which is very similar to Biodanza, which some of you may already know. This is one of the most profound periods of self-expression that I had experienced. I had always loved music and had a very natural ability to feel music in my soul, and dance was always something that felt instinctive within me. But I had never truly explored this medium as a way to connect on a deeper level before. This form of dance was not about learning steps or dancing in a particular way. It was about allowing the music to move and flow through me to allow a unique expression every single time. Sometimes it was flirty, funky, and feverish, whilst at other times it was deep, intimate, and gentle. These sessions were always held in a safe space with a facilitator who would guide you but not tell you how to dance, showing their version of each particular set of songs, and you in turn would then allow your version to come through you. That could be on your own, with another, or in a group. All the rule books were thrown out the window. I felt so alive as I learned to let go of my guarded perfectionism. And at last, I felt free to swirl and twirl, leap, scream, and play again. Yeah, just thinking of that time, I just feel so touched, because that inner child was at last given permission to return. And that's in every one of us. It truly is. It was at times challenging, as I stepped out of my comfort zone many times. But compared to the previous few years of deep grief, this was a walk in the park. And I met some very beautiful souls throughout this time, and opened up to a liberated and authentic community, and in fact ended up collaborating with my Vital Danza teacher, Helen Thatcher, working together for several years, combining the dance with my spiritual teachings in several retreats and workshops. I am so grateful for her and all the many facilitators I met over that period of time. it was a blast. I was building a life that was so different to my old structured way, and I was falling in love with life like never before. New opportunities and friendships opened up, and of course there were still times when I had my wobbles, times when I was triggered in relationships, and experiences that would floor me. But now I had a coping mechanism in place, and I took full responsibility for my stuff. I blamed less and less, and took ownership of my own happiness. One of the other things I also started to do was travel abroad to retreats and spiritual holidays. This felt very brave and challenging to me, as I had never travelled abroad on my own before. I always had my husband by my side, so we made decisions together, which made the process manageable. I had no desire whatsoever to go on a, quote, normal package holiday. They just didn't appeal anymore, and I certainly would not have gone on my own. But true to form, the universe started to line up baby steps for me, and the first trip abroad I took was to go on a satsang retreat in Spain with a facilitator I already knew. I had attended some of his groups in the UK, and I was comforted to know there would be a few people that I would know. This made the process a lot more appealing, but it still brought up some fears and vulnerability related to being unable to speak the language, as well as worry about getting lost or stranded in a foreign country. It didn't stop me though, and all in all, this first solo travelling was a good experience. And I think for me this was very pivotal at that time to start to trust in life, to trust in God, to trust in myself. And having come out of a long marriage, an 18-year marriage, I really started to see how dependent I had been. And to start to do these kind of things on my own was out of my comfort zone, absolutely. But it's good to see that this is how we break through. This is how we really can undo these old programs. And I didn't want it to stop me living. I didn't want it to stop me, expressing myself even in that way, to move forward in life. I started to feel a bit braver, realizing that there was a whole world out there waiting to be discovered. It was like a newfound sense of adventure pumping through my veins, and I was starting to feel excitement about the world beyond my old comfort zone. I had been doing a lot of inner child work at that particular time also, and came to discover that this fear and the need to be in control of my circumstances came from the part of my psyche. I started to notice when I went into wounded or abandoned child in my adult life, which played out in a multitude of ways. It was fascinating, although quite shocking at times, to realize how many of my subconscious behaviors stemmed from this wounded child. I didn't perceive that I'd had a bad childhood at all, and I had felt loved and supported by my parents. But what I soon came to learn was that for so many of us, we do experience upsetting, punishing, belittling, and traumatic scenarios in our formative years. This may be experienced within our family, extended family, school, the playground, after school clubs, or just in a day-to-day life. Because we didn't have the capabilities or emotional intelligence to deal with what came along for us, we just bumbled along the best we could, either pushing down the experience, becoming withdrawn, quiet, and a people pleaser, or behaving in a rebellious, defiant, or belligerent way. Mine was to push everything down. And we can see that if the child has been shut down, or doesn't feel worthy or hasn't been honored to express, this is how it starts to manifest as an, quote, an adult. So we may be looking as like an adult, but quite often this inner child is feeling really overwhelmed, and that's why we have these particular behaviors. But this is good news because we can start to see them, which I'll carry on to share about. So my default was to hide, play small, and retreat into my shell. So no self-expression there whatsoever. I had no ability to express what I wanted or needed, which subsequently resulted in various forms of defense, justification, or victimhood in adult life. Over a period of time, I saw how I carried around these hurts, resulting in feeling unfairly treated many times. I would then create relationships and experiences that would mirror the subconscious wounds I had of feeling totally squashed and inferior. One particular incident that came to light, and which I subsequently realized had indeed left a deep scar, was when I was about 6 years old. It was morning playtime at school, and like all 6-year-olds, I was running around and enjoying myself in the playground. Unbeknown to me, a rule had been set whilst I had been off sick from school, which for some reason meant that no one was allowed to play on the grass, and it was out of bounds. I hadn't been told this, and there were no signs to intimate this either. I found myself running on part of this sacred grass and got caught and summoned to the headmaster's office with a pointing finger of distaste from the adult who spotted me. I was in total shock as I had no idea what I had done and took myself off to stand outside the headmaster's office. I felt such an overwhelming feeling of shame, guilt, and bewilderment. As a good girl, it was unbearable to be standing outside the headmaster's office. This felt like punishment enough for me, but to top it all, I deemed that everyone who saw me would be making judgment about the crime I must have committed. It felt like an eternity before I was called into the office, and I don't remember it being such a big deal to the headmaster, but to me, it was. It was excruciating, leaving me totally speechless and without the capacity to say what had really happened and proclaim my innocence. I never told a soul about it, as I felt so ashamed, and I certainly couldn't have told my parents, as I had no desire to be seen as a naughty girl. I obviously suppressed it, blanking it out of my life for eternity. But of course it showed up, unbeknown to me, in a myriad of behaviours for decades in my life. The reason I want to share this with you is because even though it seemed an insignificant incident to the outside world, it actually shows how deeply wounding these events can be to the tender and innocent soul. So I just want to pause there a moment because I'm not alone in this. I'm sure everyone that's listening to this has had something that's been really shameful, making them feel ashamed or that they've been wrong or not validated or not heard. And this gets stored somewhere, okay? And some of you may have awareness of these kind of things and others may not, because when these kind of things happen and we just don't have the capacity or ability to cope as a child, it's got to just be pushed down, because we've got to get on with life, right? And if we weren't taught to be able to talk about things or express how we felt, it just gets locked within us, and that wounded part of us, and I don't exaggerate when I say that, it is like a wound. And I don't want to play this down, because it does happen, as I say, and it will show up in adult life, and I will go on to explain that a little bit more in the book. But I just want to have that pause here for you to think, my goodness, do you have a memory of that? Or do you have an awareness that there were times when something, bad happened to you, and you really weren't able to express it? And so this is what we're learning, as I say, on our spiritual awakening, to learn to be able to express again. And if we have hurt or upset, and it's not to moan and groan, that's not what this is for. It's true healing to let up old, stuck and blocked emotions. And it's key. It's key if we want to live a life where we feel safe and happy and are able to connect and communicate in a healthy way. I have seen again and again adults who, to all intents and purposes, are showing up as a grown-up in the world, but in actual fact are playing out some role from their childhood. This is not a judgment or a criticism, it's just a fact. And once your radar is switched onto this, it becomes very clear when it's happening. It takes great courage and commitment to face this stuff. And more often than not, people just can't see the link from their current life problems or situations to events that happened in their formative years. The ego keeps us believing that it's either somebody else's fault and transfers the blame, or lives in a bubble of perfectionism, believing their childhood was exemplary and their personal character traits have nothing to do with the past, assuming that, quote, that's just the way I am, and therefore nothing needs to change. Let's be radically honest here. We can't change our childhood, but we can change whether or not we stay a victim to it. Yes, it may have been traumatic, abusive or dysfunctional, or it may have been idyllic, dreamy and carefree. But if in adult life you've ever felt pain and suffering, abandonment, judgment, hurt, inadequacy, anger or shame, you can bet your bottom dollar it has its origins in your childhood. It may be very subtle, I'll grant you, or it may be glaringly obvious. But either way, it's there to be healed if we are willing to do the inner work. With awareness comes freedom, and I believe that if we truly want to be living a life of authenticity and joy, it is incredibly helpful to look at our family of origins and childhood patterns. Connecting to your inner child can help you break free from the past and reconnect you to your truth, returning you to your wonderful, happy, and natural state of being as an innocent, blessed, and beautiful child of God. Here are some forms of how our wounded child manifests in the adult world. Feeling lost or lonely, people-pleasing, swinging from anger to passivity, defending and attacking, unable to speak your truth or ask for what you want, feeling ashamed or guilty, judgmental to yourself or others, saying sorry all the time, self-defeating beliefs and self-talk, extra sensitivity to how others are feeling, taking on some or all of their suffering, trying to fix others and upset when they don't want your help, unable to share authentic love and intimacy with friends, family, or partners, sexual issues, controlling and fearful, unwanted habits, addiction, shyness, perfectionism and superiority, self-harm. There are varying degrees of how this shows up in our lives, and the ego will want to reject and defend itself with great intensity when these traits start to be identified. I have seen this again and again, and the ego will basically deny everything and blame everyone or everything else as the problem. Yeah, again, I just want to stop there because this is a big topic. And, you know, the reason this is being shared is to help us, to start to explore this area, because if we, as I say, we truly want to be our natural self, to be totally free to express and not keep holding back or withdrawing or, attacking verbally or getting angry all the time or defensive all the time or superior or inferior or, there's a way through it. Life doesn't have to be like that, is what I'm saying. So to start to open your heart, start to recognize, my goodness, I do have these tendencies. And it's, as I say, it's not to make you wrong. It's not that at all. It's just to help you see that that's not who you really are. And it's not easy. I'm not going to say it is easy, because it's not, to face these things. But do we want to live a life of limitation and just existing, just getting by, just making do, keeping the status quo, not rocking the boat? Is that what you really want? I mean, you deserve so much more than that. And this is the key to opening the door that was shut, to those traumatic times. And, I've worked a lot with people around this topic, and, it does take courage. But my goodness, what comes through from the other side is priceless. And also, I think what I'm really starting to see, and it's literally blocked communication does make us ill. Now, I'm not saying that lightly, and I don't want you to just overlook what I'm saying there. I really want you to see that. Because if we're shutting down all the time, or if we're in a heightened state of fight or flight or attack and defend, we're not, our whole system is on the edge. It's not in peace and calm. And the mind is trapped. It's kind of stuck in a loop. And it literally makes us ill, and it will come in any form, not just anxiety or stress or, it so many ways. So it's very important to start to allow your expression to come. So as I mentioned, it's part of it is to allow the old stuff to come up, and then your natural self-expression can start to come forth. And And what I've seen as well, which I'm currently right in, is this joining with another on such a deep level to wanting to be so radically honest, defenseless, vulnerable, and sharing everything that's on my mind. Because if I keep anything locked in there, I can't connect to my source because I'm not in love. And love is always here now. And if I've got all this garbage in my mind, I'm never present. And it's heavy and it's dark. And therefore we're not in the light. We're not going to join with our source. So I think I'm going to call it a day with this reading from the book. There is more in that section, but it feels enough. Yeah, and I really want just to encourage you to honor yourself. You know, if you've noticed any triggers or had some insights or memories, to just really be gentle. And, you know, if you need help with it, there's help out there. You don't have to do this alone. And in fact, you can't do it on your own. Because that's what I tried to do. I was very private to start with my healing and my thoughts. It felt too big. You know, what would people really think if they knew who I was and what I believed? And I could see how the ego used that to keep me private. And that, again, isn't wrong. If that's where you are, that's not a judgment. It's okay. But I would wholeheartedly encourage you to start to open this stuff up in a safe place with someone you trust, that can help you, you know, bring the things to the light. And there are beautiful ways to then transform that and to heal that. It's something I work with clients with all the time, and I work on myself every day with this. And I promise you, this is not an exception. It's every day I'm committed to this self-expression, and it's changed my life so much. And the level of intimacy that I experience now in my relationships is something I could only have dreamed of. And when I say intimacy, it's not about bodies. It's got nothing to do with that. It's into me you see. You know, if you break that up, into me you see. It's truly letting someone see you, truly dropping the masks, the facade, the persona, the so-called identity of who you think you are. That is not the truth of you. And that's why I'm here to share this, to encourage you to step forward with this. Reach out if you need to. There's help, as I say, and there's a power, a love, an infinite source that wants to support you and hold you and encourage you all the way to your true freedom, to your true beautiful expression. And what greater gift could there be to the world and to yourself than that? So thank you for being willing to hear this, for being willing to open your mind. And I pray that the light will come into your heart and that beautiful inner child of yours can start to emerge and shine his or her light. Yeah, so I send you lots of love, many blessings, and yeah, we're just here to walk each other home. Thank you.